Hi, everyone, and welcome into Don't Tell Me How to Fan. My name is Josh Albrecht, and with me, as always, is my good friend, John Taylor. John, how we doing?
Hey, I'm good, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm not going to lie. This is like 3 episodes in a row now where I have said to you, maybe you need to tell me how to fan. I don't know how to fan in regards to the Milwaukee Bucks. And even before we just started recording today's show, you said, well, we should talk Bucks because they're playing meaningful games. And are they? Are these meaningful games? Are they meaningful because they count for something? Or are they meaningful because we want them to win? Are they meaningful because they're winning and we don't want them to win? I'm so confused. I'm just so confused. And it's not getting better.
No, it's not. It's not going to get better. Well, they still won 6 of their last 7. So the more they win, the more meaningful these games get. I feel like this is my weekly reminder that they are still very much in the hunt for the playoffs because the play-in games are such that the play-in tournament is such that you can be pretty bad and still have a chance to get in the playoffs. So, I think last week maybe that news came out after we recorded, but Mo Wagner is going to be out for a while, like maybe I think the rest of the year for the Magic. And so that becomes way more in striking distance. Like the Bulls are still barely ahead of the Bucks in terms of standings. And, we got Ousmane Dieng from them because they were like, oh shoot, we should probably get Nick Richards so we have an actual center to play on the roster. And their games have been going exactly how you'd expect. The Hornets and the Hawks are still playing. The Heat are in the 8th seed right now. They played the Bucks this week, and the Bucks kind of turned it on late and found a way to win, which was awesome. So, they're in the mix. They're in the mix. When we talk about where this team started at the beginning of the year or, where they're at now, I think, like you said, I don't want to tell anyone how to fan, but I think there's been a lot of more so than in the last 10 years, just constantly recalibrating expectations, I would say,
Yeah, but I feel like it's day to day doing that. That's the problem. And I still question marks about Giannis. And, a lot of this was, do you remember when the reports came out that Giannis might even be there for the All-Star game? And then it was, all right, well, definitely right after the All-Star game. And then it was, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, I don't know that I want him to be back, right? Isn't the whole thing that it was just if Giannis is back, they got to play because Giannis is ultra competitive. He wants to be on a competitive team. But if he's out for even longer, then don't we want the high draft pick? Isn't that still the plan?
I don't know. I don't know if that's what's going on the radio in Milwaukee. Most of the people I talk to are of the mind, and I'm of this mind as well, so maybe I'll just speak for myself. If Giannis wants to come back and the Bucks find ways to win without Giannis and then they add Giannis, then let's see how far this team can go. I think there is definitely it wasn't addition by subtraction, but you turned Amir Coffey and Cole Anthony into Ousmane Dieng and, by extension, Cam Thomas. And they've been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
They've been incredible ads. And, offensively, they're picking up. I think there's a lot of questions about what this team is going to look like when Giannis comes back. It's a lot of ball-dominant players on this roster right now. And Giannis coming back makes that a little cloudy. But listen, I think worst-case scenario would have been they lost all of these games in 6 weeks Giannis has been out. And Giannis goes, why am I coming back? What am I coming back to? And the goodwill of even thinking about a contract extension goes out the window. But I mean, they're finding ways to win. You look at even right before that All-Star break, and I know we're 2 weeks out from that point, but it's when was the last time you saw Giannis have that psychopath grin on his face when he watches a teammate hit a really cold shot like Cam did? I'm just saying he seems bought in, he seems invested. I'm seeing him a little less, so maybe that means he's gearing up more. I think the tank's dead. I mean, the tank's dead in the sense that this team added enough guys. Horst did his magic where they're playing competitive basketball. And do they have things to work on? Absolutely. Do they have a roster that could contend in the playoffs? Probably not. But I think them showing enough fight to get back into the play-in instead of rolling over, I think is a testament to the guys in the locker room because the coaching staff isn't doing much. I'm not employed by the Bucks. I'll say it. Doc and his crew, the game they played against Toronto last Sunday was embarrassing. It was emblematic of a lot of the problems, which is the guys just aren't seeming to be getting coached in the middle of the games. I sometimes I just don't really understand why the emphasis of the game seems to fall off so hard, and like Doc is just like so resistant in like actually trying to get the train back on the tracks. I don't understand it. And that's fine, I guess. But that's just one game, and then they came back, and like I said, they came back and fought hard. Kevin Porter Jr. had an incredible fourth quarter. Full transparency, they're playing the Cavaliers right now. It's pretty close right now, but like Kevin Porter Jr. is having a heck of a stat line too.
Yep.
Five steals in the first half, almost. It's just like one quarter. So it's like the guys are playing hard. They're learning how to play with each other. Like they're faster, they're more athletic. It's like exciting. I definitely want to see Giannis back. That is first and foremost. I want Giannis back. Like, so I don't know. I think like I don't even know if this was your original question. This is like the most free form conversation we've had about really any of the teams since we got on the radio. Which is fine. But I'll just say that like they probably want him to take the full 6 weeks. He keeps coming back. He keeps getting hurt. Like it's not helpful.
100%. I would like him to take longer than that. It's so hard for me, John, to focus on this season. I feel like fans, the organization, everyone besides Giannis was like, a gap year is okay. It's okay to take a year if it means we will be back to what you want us to be. You got to give Horst a year. And then it was like, Giannis is like, no, that's not who I am. Competitive. I'm going to play my hardest. Well, and then you got the injury bug. And it's like, okay, well, maybe it's not up to you. Maybe this year.
Well, I mean, there is another more insidious fact that Giannis seems to keep hurting himself with the way he plays basketball the older he gets.
He's going to have to make some changes. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so he's out of award contention at this point. Like he's not going to hit the 65 game threshold. Neither is Jokic. Neither is SGA. I don't know if you like. I think, it's going to be an interesting way they try to determine how to do this because at this point I think Giannis has missed too much time to be considered it. But you look at like a guy like SGA, it's like I don't love how he plays basketball, but there's no arguing that he is the most important Thunder on a team of incredible players. Like I keep laughing that like Ousmane Dieng could have been a guy. That roster was so loaded. He was the 15th guy, and they just went, we don't know. You can have him because we can't do anything with him, even if we wanted to. And what a fantastic problem to be in if you're the OKC Thunder. But that's not us, and that's not who we root for. We root for the Bucks. And I'll continue to just bang this drum that like Giannis needs to come back healthy. If they do find a way to win enough games that he can come back fully ready to go, and they can make an earnest push, and he can be healthy through a playoff run. I think if they play the Pistons, if they were the A seed, it'd be a tough series to win. But I said this going into the year, and I can't change my mind. He's, in my opinion, the best player on the planet.
I agree.
And it's like if he's in a series and he's healthy, I think like he can make stuff happen. Because I think what this team has that the old, I guess old is the right word. The old teams, the previous teams that were old, this is an age comment, they're faster and they're more athletic. And I think they can run, they can keep up. Rebounding is still atrocious. I don't really know. Jericho Sims seems to have fixed that a good amount. Pete Nance coming in is pretty good. It's been a revelation. Having just a guy in Ousmane Dieng who can an actual small forward, and he's pretty big, which when they trot out lineups with Kyle Kuzma at the 3, it's like they like being big. They want to weaponize their size. And so, it gives some flexibility. What the lineup looks like with Giannis coming back, I have no clue. My guess is KPJ finds his way on the bench, which seems crazy to think given how
the hot hand,
how great he's been playing. But it's either him or Rollins because AJ Green really only feasts off of the gravity that Giannis creates. Like he's not been great without him on the floor. And he is 100% the benefit of the space that Giannis makes on the court for open shooters. So I just don't think you can lose that because, AJ Green is a killer from the 3-point line, and I'm not saying anything new, but these are all interesting things to talk about. But you talk about being able to bring Dieng off the bench, Bobby's still a microwave scorer, Cam and KPJ. It's like, there's a lot of interesting pieces. Does interesting equate to winning? Most certainly not, but it's fun and exciting.
Not at the level we need.
Yeah. I'll say this much too. I just don't like watching the Bucks lose as long as Giannis is on the team. So I don't,
I agree.
Tank be darned and all that, I just think if they can win without him, great. Then you add a guy who's of the caliber that Giannis is, and you say, great, hopefully they keep winning, right? That's the expectation.
Okay. So let's play this out because I love letting my brain go wild and play out all possibilities. Okay, so let's say that they they make a push. And let's say they make it to the playing game and then they lose. Okay. Now they're done and now they're not getting a top 5 pick, they're getting a middle of the road pick. Okay. I don't think they're going to take that pick. So what? Then at this point they're going to package that pick with maybe some more first round picks that are now available to them and just keep kicking the can down the road and try to get another veteran guy in here to pair with Giannis. And you're assuming if they're doing that, that means that Giannis is in, right?
Yeah.
If they're trying to make that type of move, which is my big thing, is that if Giannis isn't, because I cannot assume that Giannis is going to sign the Supermax. You don't know. We don't know. And if he doesn't, then this team that we're watching now is the future of the Bucks, right? We would obviously trade him for something, but we wouldn't be able to get that youth in the draft like we have this potential of getting a top 5 pick in this stacked draft that everyone keeps talking about. We wouldn't have that this year. So those are the reasons why I'm going, I understand what we're trying to do now. I understand wanting to prove to Giannis' team can be competitive and keep him here. And I love that. I love all of that. But also, it still creates question marks. It creates questions upon questions of, so what does that mean? What does that mean for what's happening next? Because I can't just buy in to just caring about this season of NBA basketball. I'm looking ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, to your point, I would say signing a young guy and assuming he's going to come in and produce right away is also not a sure bet. And
That's
so you do look at this. I mean, if you want to look at it from the other side of the coin, like people thought Jabari Parker and Giannis were going to be a two-headed monster, and only one of that turned out to be true. You know, you can't predict the future.
Right.
And what you can do is use these picks to go get a solidified star, right? So, and this is an off-season conversation for sure. But there are guys you unlock a bunch of first-round picks. You can get a pretty good package together pretty quickly, knowing one of two things. You make a trade package and it doesn't work. Giannis is gone at the All-Star break. You recoup almost all those picks anyways. Realistically, so it's pretty easy to just flip that lever again if you're concerned about losing picks moving forward. Number 2, Giannis can't sign that extension until October. So there is no answer that's coming before we see some sort of meaningful basketball. Whether even if that's just like preseason, like it's this conversation about is Giannis staying, is he going, isn't going anywhere. It can't for another, at this point, I guess it's 6 months. So what's the conversation? All you can really do, I would say, is put your faith and trust in Giannis's words. He said, if they're going to compete, I want to be here. So fingers crossed that's what happens, because I think like no matter what, like you get into the playoffs this year, you show Giannis, we were serious. We made some moves. These guys want to fight. Next year, hopefully there's a coaching staff shakeup. You package some picks. You bring another star like Trey Murphy in, or, some people I've heard like other places like floating like Kawhi. I don't think that's a great idea, seeing as it sounds like he's going to get suspended for that contract shenanigans that was going on with the Clippers. But I just mean there are guys you can go get. And I think if you can do that, you get Giannis and you just hope he wins 7 more championships here before he retires. What do you think?
That sounds like a great idea to me. I'd be all in. All right, we might not know who the future players for the Bucks may be, but we definitely know who the future players for the Brewers are, and they are performing right now at spring training. And some names that I did not expect to hear are making some waves down in Maryvale. We'll talk about all that and more when we come back on Don't Tell Me How to Fan. Brewers are playing spring training baseball, and we know what that means because we know they got a bag of prospects, right? And spring training is when we find out about these guys, and we're watching. It's literally the most confusing positive energy to me in sports. You're caring about essentially the same thing as like a family night scrimmage with the Packers. there's no rhyme or reason. You want to care about the score, but the scores don't matter. The players, the coaches, none of them are worrying about the scores. They're all analyzing pitch counts and mechanics and looking at all these things to see who can have a shot and prove that they deserve to be on the team. Now, in a lot of situations, Sean, with a lot of organizations, the lineups are set. Your team is solidified. Maybe there's like an extra utility man spot that could get some run in spring training. Not the case with the Brewers, right? Even though they signed Rengifo, who we talked about last week, who we're assuming is going to play third, we still don't know. We're still looking at who's going to make waves in spring training. And there are some names that, like, I don't know, I didn't necessarily plan on talking about. Lockridge, right out the gate in the first 2 games of the season, hitting 2 home runs, and you're going, oh, Brandon Lockridge, okay. I didn't have him on my bingo card. How about Tyler Black putting up 6 RBIs in the first 3 innings of a game? I'm going
a 3-run single. That's the one. It wasn't on. It wasn't broadcast either. I'm like, how did this happen?
Right.
Someone explained to me in detail how you drove in 3 runs with 1 single, but it happened.
So so there are names being discussed, and obviously, yes, there were highlights of Jet Williams and there were other people you were looking for. Made, for example, also had a hit and was highlighted by the social media team because none of us could figure out who or where is broadcasting the game. But in general, it's about these other names, and then I'm going, okay, but does any of that matter? Like, how good does Tyler Black have to perform in spring training to earn a roster spot? Like,
pretty good.
Right.
I'll answer you right now. He has to play pretty good because every time they've called him up, he's been pretty bad. So just to hop in and counter your point, I think the biggest thing you expect to see out of spring training is some advanced metric stuff, which I know is kind of boring, especially when you talk about it on the radio, but we want to see pitchers hitting certain velocity. We want to see movement on their pitches. We want to see progression that way. And I think, like, unlike baseball or unlike other sports, baseball is like one of the few sports where you could do everything. You could have an outcome that is bad, as in like strike out, do a bunch of things, foul out, but there's so much stuff you could learn from hitting and getting reps in that you could start building profiles of like consistency, efficiency, exit velocity, pitching, like I said, like ball movement, rotation, pitching arsenal, pitching decisions. Like, there's so much that happens in spring training that truthfully, none of it really amounts to a hill of beans in terms of like the win and loss record. They're played like exhibition games for sure, but there's a lot of things to get excited about. I to answer your question, you were kind of riffing up the top. I think Brandon Lockridge is probably the first guy called up. I think he starts in the minors.
I think all these guys start.
Heck of a start. Well, what I mean is, like, Garrett Mitchell, if he's healthy, is going to get the most crack at it. He's somebody who has power in his bat if he can stay healthy. There's a report today talking about, he came out saying earlier this week or late last week that he needs to like play a lot safer. And it's like, I would agree. He needs to figure out how to play a full season of baseball, but the Brewers won't quit him. Because there's a world where if you can get Garrett Mitchell out in center field and you get Churio back in left, you get Yelly at the DH, it gets really exciting really quickly. Tyler Black, he's going to be a tweener. But when you talk about like the guys like Pena and Made and Wilkin and Pratt, I don't think a lot of these guys are going to see time, but everything, as long as there isn't a lockout next year, everything is talking about how the Brewers prospects are poised to explode onto the major league roster in like 27 and 28. And that's what you're watching right now. You're just watching guys get incrementally better, which is awesome. So I don't know, you have to watch it in phases. It's not going to equate to next season, but if you're a fan of the team and you like the guys, let's watch the guys.
Yeah, of course. I'm okay with it. I'm just saying, like, these aren't the names. Like, when I'm seeing a Pratt, Pena, Made, Williams, when I'm seeing those highlights, I'm going, okay, yeah, here's a glimpse into the future of the Brewers. Got it. When I'm seeing Tyler Black, when I'm seeing highlights of guys that were supposed to be something 3 years ago that aren't, then I'm going, oh, now wait a minute. Who are these? Wait a minute. We're still on these guys? Wait, do I need to keep an eye on these guys? Are these going to be the guys this year that are making moves that are that are going to get called up, that are going to be a part of the team? Who knows? It's just another wrinkle to trying to enjoy spring training baseball that is just so weird. That's just so weird. The other news that happened was Brandon Woodruff. They talked to Brandon Woodruff, and essentially the stories came out, the articles came out that said, hey, listen, the main goal is not opening day. Being ready for opening day is not the main goal. The main goal is being healthy and being there down the stretch when the team needs him most. Now, on one hand, I agree. I would very much like Brandon Woodruff to be available when it matters most. On the other hand, we just gave him a bunch of money. I didn't know that this was still concerns about his health. I thought the problem was like he could have been close to coming back in the NLCS and making noise, didn't. Okay, but then was like close to where now that additional, recouping time would have put him to where in spring training he's ready to go. That's why they said, yeah, we're going to give you the contract. We're going to bring you back for 1 year. Now we don't know. Now we don't know. More than likely, he's not pitching opening day. Doesn't seem that way anyway.
Well, let's make one thing abundantly clear. They did not offer him $22 million. He took $22 million from the Brewers. They extended that offer to get the compensatory pick that would have been subsequent from him opting for free agency. They did not expect him to take that money, because if you're telling, there's no world in which the Brewers would go and pay $22 million to any starting pitcher on the market. That's not their MO. They did not think he was going to accept it because he could have fetched a prettier price tag. I'm only saying that to say, this whole situation, as awesome and as glad as I am that Brandon Woodruff is still a Brewer, it's just none of it is as smooth as I think we all hoped it would be as Brewers fans. And that's just not you. I just think like everybody assumed that, if they were going to get him back, I mean, the signing was a blessing, but is it really? I mean, it's not our money, so who cares? But I'll say this. I don't really need him to start the season. What I would really like him to do is, get in and then finish the season. So,
and that's what he's saying is the plan.
And I think that's a pretty good plan, if you ask me, because I think there's plenty of starting pitchers, especially when you talk about all of the guys we got. We still have Zerpa. We want to see pitch. We still got, we got Sproat, and then there's a bunch of other guys there. There's so many guys that I'm just like, really, I'm not too worried about it. I could see why Brewers fans are, not loving the timeline, given the fact that he couldn't be in the playoffs last year. You assume that when you extended that qualifying offer that he was going to be ready to go. But that's why I brought it up. They did not extend that qualifying offer because they wanted him to pitch for the Brewers on opening day. I don't think they wanted him to pitch for the Brewers at all at that price tag. But that's where we find ourselves. So, I think like all you can do is keep watching these pitching simulations. He showed that even with a drop in like 2 to 3 miles per hour on his velo, like his pitches are still nasty. He's finding ways to be dominant in different ways. And it's like, that's going to be really valuable sooner rather than later. And I'm just like, as frustrating as it is, like, go trot Miz out for opening day. I don't think he's an ace, but like, you want some juice, like, let's just like go see it, But spring training, it's so early in spring training too. They still have like 15 more games to play. There's so much. There's so much going on. And at the end of the day, like you said, like you can do everything right, and Murph will still do whatever he wants because he's your 2-time reigning NL manager.
You trust Murph. He trusts Murph regardless. You have to. I mean,
I have to trust him because he just signed that extension. We buried the lead.
Absolutely, which is fantastic. Yeah. For all the crap I give Mark Antanasio for not spending money, he spent a lot of money there, and it was perfect. It was exactly what you wanted to see. Great, keep Murph here, pay Murph. I mean, absolutely, that was fantastic. Listen, I understand everything from every angle. Doesn't mean I like it in regards to Woodruff. I want that to not be a concern. You brought up Jabari Parker earlier, right? Of like the potential. Now, I'm not saying that Jabari Parker and Brandon Woodruff are similar for what they've done for the teams, but it was a lot of promise and a guy that just couldn't stay healthy. Like it was just like crushing blows. The story of Brandon Woodruff has quickly become from awesome ace with incredible memories to, God, when we needed him the most, though, he just we thought it was going to be a short stint on the IR, and it wasn't. And then he was just out, and then he was still out, and he knows it. You listen to some of these reports in the locker room. He says it. He's super disappointed. He does not want this to be his legacy. He's sick of the injury bug being the thing that's holding him back. I'm just sitting here going, I didn't know we were still having that conversation.
Yeah.
And so the fact that at spring training, when I went, all right, well, here's what we know for sure. Woody will be out there on opening day. Psych? No, we don't know that. And now I'm not saying, they haven't said for sure that he won't be, but to this point, it's just been, he's thrown some pitches in a live pitching. It hasn't been simulated, and he's felt good.
Yeah,
but they're monitoring.
To everyone's credit, in the PR department, messaging, health, Woody got waylaid way longer last year than he was expecting. And I'll say that injury, we knew he was going to be all out the year before. So it's like, that was a serious injury to come back from. This one was unexpected at the end of the year. But if I were Brandon Woodruff, I would not be promising a return date to anyone at any time ever until I was actually walking on the mound, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like we're seeing a lot of the starting pitchers right now getting a ton of work in these games. So it's not like Woodruff would go out there. I think like a guy with his experience and his age, it's simulated is great. Slow and steady wins the race in terms of that. You're going to lose a bunch of guys to the World Baseball Classic soon anyway. So these games are going to get like hilariously less competitive anyway. So, I am not willing to think that he can't pitch opening day, but that's just where we're at. And I don't know if that's riveting in terms of
let me
takes.
Ask you this, John, really quick before we get out. Do you want him, after hearing this news, do you want him to pitch opening day?
If he can pitch, yes. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. He is the ace on this team. The difference between him and Jabari Parker is Jabari Parker wishes he elevated to the heights that Brandon Woodruff did in his own profession. So I've just seen when it was Corbin or Woody 3 years ago, I was like, please sign Woodruff. You know what I mean? And this was before he got hurt. Like I love Brandon Woodruff. Him in the locker room matters. People talk about him. I think I want him to come in and drop his baseballs on the table and then pitch a solid outing. You know what I mean? That's what I want. So I don't know if that's what I'm going to get, but I'm not one of those people who's going to bail on Woodruff because he's dealing with health stuff. Like that's just, pitching is a hard thing to do. You wreck your body. And this, people, it's not if, it's when do you get Tommy Johns, right? There's people in college electing to get it before the majors because of how inevitable it is. Like this is just where the sport has progressed to, sadly. So,
yeah, you're not wrong. I'm with you. I want to see Woody pitch. It's a long season. If they, we saw last season what they can do when they had, Miz on a pitch count to not extend him too far. Maybe it's something like that. I think it's still super important that you have Woodruff as part of the team, part of the rotation in some way, shape, or form. That's what's going on with the Brewers. We got to talk Packers. I know it's off season, but the Combine's coming, and we had Goody talked at the Combine. I love when Brian Gutekunst talks to the Combine because he talked two separate times, and one was like in a hotel room with curtains behind him. It was brilliant. We will talk about all that and more when we come back on Don't Tell Me How to Fan. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to Don't Tell Me How to Fan. I'm Josh Albrecht, John Taylor right there. We have talked now. Let's see if I can do this. Bucks and Brewers. We have Packers still to talk, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, Packers offseason, blah, 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 blah. But football and the NFL really never stops. And it's combine time, which a lot of people super get into the Combine. John, are you one of those people that is analyzing and looking at, their how high they're jumping and how fast they're running and using that to put together your draft plan for the Packers?
When the Packers have a first-round draft pick, absolutely, I am doing that. This year, it's hard to get too excited about the Combine because you're really kind of talking about the best of the best, and the Packers don't have access to the best of the best. So it's an interesting time. I do like it. There's, I forget. There's the guy, R.E.S. Baum. He has a real name. It's like Keith Platley or something. I don't know. Anyways, Kent. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He puts together the way fans refer to football players, which I brought up on this show plenty of times, the relative athletic score. Packers are very vocal in saying they don't use that, but they definitely use metrics pretty similar. So what I do like about it is these guys test, and then you can kind of start going like, okay, the Packers have parameters of perimeters that they'll go over and go under and all of that stuff. And I think like it's fun to see some of the guys test just to see where they're at. And I think the Packers, like I said, have profiles that are well established that if you're going to be slow, you're not going to play corner. If you're going to be small, you're not going to play wide receiver. So it's like we can start crossing off some guys off the list. And I think that's like pretty fun. But this is an interesting draft in the sense that like they're going to have to sign guys in free agency. And so until we know who they signed, I don't really know what the draft is going to look like. Because they for the first time in a long time, they can't just attack the draft to satisfy needs and then bring in guys to plug holes. Like it's like fully, it's going to be a complete picture in terms of value signings and free agency, and then obviously in the combine as well. But I do like it. It is fun to watch. I mean, they've done a great job of making everything an event in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single news note, anything has to be televised and promoted. I will say, you know, all the reports and everything and all the focus was on Brian Gutekunst speaking down at the combine this week. And I always think it's super interesting when people get really excited to hear from Brian Gutekunst, because not that, you know, in the past, if you were talking to, I don't know, there was someone else, like when you were listening to Mark Murphy, like Mark Murphy might say something to where you're like, oh boy, hey, here's a headline. Goody is so good at giving you nothing, professionally answering your question and giving you nothing. And so it was, you know, I think if you go to Packers.com or their YouTube page, I think 30 minutes of total interview, answering questions, pressers from Goody at the combine. And there were very few things that I got out of it. The only ones that I did that were stunning to me were, one, him double and tripling down on the fact that the Packers had no clue that Rich Bisaccia might step down. Not that he was going to. They didn't even have an inkling. They were planning everything as if he was going to. That was wild to me, John, for a lot of reasons. First of all, how do you have a guy like Bisaccia, who you say is such like a monumental part of the makeup of this organization? He's, you know, he's close with so many different people and blah, blah, blah. And then go, oh my gosh, we had no idea. Completely caught us off guard. How is that? All of the fans thought you were going to be the one to pull the trigger. And then it turns out that he does it himself and says, yeah, you know what? I think it's time for me to move on. And you're stunned? That was kind of a red flag to me of like, how did that come out of nowhere? So that was one. The other thing that, and then I'll let you comment on these, but the other thing that got me from his pressers was when they talked about Rashawn Gary and him saying that, you know, Rashawn Gary still added, you know, a lot to the team and that year, and that they expect him to be performing at a higher level in next year and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, I know you can't just come out and say, I don't expect him to be here. But this has opened up conversations in a world that I thought for sure would be Rashawn Gary-less, that Rashawn Gary is still going to potentially be in a Packers uniform next season. And now I'm hearing from people reasons why that's a good thing. And it's blowing my mind, John. It's all blowing my mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you threw a lot out there. I appreciate the debrief.
Throw like four.
You didn't hit on the most interesting thing that I thought Goody said in the press conference. So I'll touch on that after I answer your questions. First thing first, the Rich Bisaccia thing. Even if I don't know, I think that's the answer you have to give no matter what, because it was such a late step down that either the Packers saw his cabinet get gutted and they said, this is a good time for you to go, Rich. And he went, yeah, okay, I'll step down. Or the second option is he went, you know what? My entire cabinet got gutted. I don't want to rebuild this out. And I'm going to step down. The third is, hey, I'm thinking about stepping down. If you guys don't give me a raise, I might leave. And they said, okay, great. All of these are bad. And you can't come out and say any of them because it happened so late that they missed the entire coaching cycle. So, I mean, you can make that, you can equivocate that all you want, but the team is not, there's no world in which they did not know Rich Bisaccia. I choose, you can't say that.
Lying. You think
I think Goody is doing exactly what Goody does well, which is exactly how you led off this segment, saying he is so good at giving you everything you want to hear while saying nothing. that felt like nothing to me. Because at the end of the day, he's not here anymore. And it doesn't really, I just don't think that happens like that. I call BS, and it's okay that it's BS. That's what I'm saying. This isn't even like it's immoral for him to lie about it. I'm like, yeah, because otherwise it sounds like you guys had your pants around your ankles. And it wasn't because you didn't know. It's because it should have been done sooner. So there's like a million different reasons. And I think like he's commenting on a timeline that doesn't exist. Like I said, like I think like it happened when it did because things happened really quickly. And one side decided to take advantage of the opportunity. And this is how it resulted. And it doesn't matter anymore. Also, it just doesn't matter. They've been conducting people. I'm not excited about the candidates that were listed. Can't get much worse. Ish. I shouldn't say that.
It absolutely.
I'm going to knock on wood. It could. You're right. So we'll see. And then your second point, Rashawn Gary. This is the interesting one. I am coming around to the idea that Rashawn Gary could remain a Packer, and I don't want to. It is like such an obvious cap casualty, and it's like, all the best like prognosticators, like Ken Ingalls, I think is still beating the drum of like they're going to release him, and I hope they do. What I will say is, if you start looking at what does this defensive line look like right now, and then you go and we have to get rid of Rashawn Gary, it's like so glib or like bad that you might just be stuck. And I don't think it's a good thing. I just mean like he's a warm body he's better than the unknown. I mean, at this point, he's not going to give you a lot. Yeah, because JJ Enikbari is going to walk. I think like you're going to lose a lot of guys. And I think like I don't know if the Packers, and I think they are a Super Bowl caliber team, especially when you talk about all the players that are going to come back from injury, like they're going to get real good in a hurry. I don't know how you can fundamentally shake up the defensive line this much and then also cut Rashawn Gary on top of it. That's where I'm coming down on it. It seems so obvious to me, and it still could very well happen, but I don't know. You just don't know. And this is another thing where it's like, do I think Goody's lying? Yeah, maybe. He said Jair was on the team until he wasn't, and it was like no secret. It's like we're going to get pretty short, quick, and in a hurry. We're going to start getting the Bill Hubers, the Rob Demoskis, all of the insiders in the world being like, yeah, they're going to cut Rashawn, because that's what they do with Jair. They're like, yeah, if they can't find a trade, he's gone. And sure as everything else, it happened. So, so we'll see. I don't think it's going to be a good thing, but it's a stable thing. And I think at some point you just need to stabilize. Because I think back of like, remember when they let all the safeties walk and they were trotting out Darren Levitt and Simone Biles' husband? That's Jonathan Owens. I shouldn't do that. He's his own man. He's his own man.
No, you're right though.
That didn't work. That was not good. You can't just let everybody walk because they didn't do what you wanted. And it's one of those situations that I don't envy that position skill group. I don't envy his choice because it's a tough spot to be in. The most interesting thing I thought of, or I heard, during that press conference was somebody thoughtfully asked the question, you love competition in all of your rooms. Which rooms do you think need the most competition? And I would have thought he would have said the defensive line. He said the linebackers, and he said the cornerback room. And the cornerback room is not surprising. The linebacker one is, because obviously we know Quay Walker is set to hit free agency. They drafted Tyron Hopper in the 3rd round, thinking that maybe and I don't think he's where they think he was going to be at. I think I'd be lying. I love Edrin Cooper. I still think he could be a all-star Pro Bowl player in this league. He did not take the step forward that you thought he was going to last year. And I still think that the progress is not linear. I don't think that means he's a bust. I just mean he flashes in such an impressive way that I want to see more of it consistently. And so does every other Packer fan. I'm not saying anything new here, but it's interesting because one thing I will say, Goody does tell you what he's going to do in the draft in these press conferences. We just love not to believe him because it's not what Packers internet community thinks that they should be worrying about.
Correct.
He's like, hey, we're going to draft a defensive lineman. We're looking at linebackers, and we're like, draft Jackson Smith and Jigba. And it's like, yeah, well, they got Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt with 2 first-round picks. They're not trading up. They're doing exactly, that might not have been the same draft, but you get my point. Like,
he said, these are what they say they are.
He said, he's like, it's one of those, it's like, it's not reverse psychology. We're constantly like, yeah, he didn't bring up a tight end, so maybe they're drafting a tight end. It's like, nah, he said he was going to draft an outside linebacker, and what do you know? They did.
That's exactly what they did.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's an interesting point. And I absolutely listen. I think that being a Packers fan and seeing how Goody does things is so frustrating, but the end result is what we're looking for. Like, it's so frustrating listening to him and then watching the way that sometimes that this team moves at a snail's pace. But then years, a year down the road, whatever it is, we're going, all right, yeah, that was probably a good call. Goody did a good job there. And that's just difficult in the moment as Packers fans, as we want that instant gratification, which I think was why we were all so pleased with the Micah Parsons trade, because that was the instant gratification, which ended up being a good move. Someone also at the combine presser had said, do you regret it all, the Micah Parsons trade, which he could not have shut down quick enough and saying, absolutely not. Injury be damned, did not matter. I absolutely, that was the right move for our team and our organization. So we'll see. I definitely think that, to your point and what you said earlier, to reiterate, free agency is going to be huge for this Packers team. They have a lot of holes to fill. This is not something to where it's like this team on paper is a Super Bowl contending team. We just need one more cornerback. That is not the situation that the Green Bay Packers face in this upcoming season. So I expect Goody to do things. I expect the Packers to do things. I expect them to do what they say they're going to do. And man, do I just hope that it doesn't end with a seventh seed finish. I'm hoping it's more than that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I will say the last little thing that I really appreciated about Goody's conference for the second year in a row, which he didn't do the first 5 years he was here, was he said, we are a Super Bowl caliber team. And the expectation is that we are going to be pushing for championships. So it was way more of like, I think, a shot to the players, which is really in line with what we heard Micah Parsons talking about guys needing to get hungry and be ready to compete. And so we'll see. I mean, we're a little ways out from a free agency primer, but I think it's time to start looking at some like older guys. I think there might be some like veteran leadership that needs to be injected back into this team, but guys need to figure out how to win and how to do it consistently. And I'm really glad Goody keeps banging that drum. Like we have the coaching staff, we have the players, put it together now. Cause I think that is probably pretty accurate about where they're at.
Well, and here's where we are at in the state of Wisconsin. We know that regardless of the team or the sport, our Wisconsin sports teams are all looking at the future, and we're trying to figure out who they need to add and who's going to step up and be that next guy. We know for sure that the next time that we talk to you here on Don't Tell Me How to Fan, we will have updates on who is shining in spring training and how the Bucks are doing as well. And who knows, there might be some Packer news on top of that. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Don't Tell Me How to Fan. Make sure to tune in next time because we're not done yet.